Well, you the one talking about. I guess
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order.
Voices blending, melodies ascending, harmony in the air. Our songs are never ending. In the barbershop we create magic. Brad and John show, yeah. It's pure classic. No instruments needed, just our vocal range. Notes flying high, it's our musical exchange. Tracy's station may try, but they can't compete. Our barbershop style, it can't be beat. Oh, the harmony of voices, so sweet. In the barbershop of life, our tunes will repeat. No need for instruments, no need for a band. Just the Brad and John show, the finest in the land.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is the 10th of October, 10/10. Good morning, John Combest.
Good morning, Brad Hildebrand.
John, I know we try to get into your top three as soon as we can, but I have two pieces of business to take care of this morning before we bring in the Polka Boys. Will you give me that allowance this morning?
You're the head HNIC, which is head North County boy in charge. Yeah, Brad, of course.
Isn't that HNBIC that?
No, Brad, you get the reference. Go ahead.
Okay. Sad note, and I will mention this because of the fact that I had a little skirmish with this guy a few months back. Kevin Russell passed away yesterday. Kevin Russell.
I'm sorry, Brad.
Yes, it's sort of a sad story. Kevin Russell was the general manager of Don Z Communications, which owned 93.1 KBDZ and I think KSGM St. Genevieve. The general manager did an air shift on 93.1 between 9 and noon. And it's an interesting story because of the fact that when 93.1 took over the translator, or actually the station of 101.7, and brought their brand of Keishi music with Randy Rayleigh in the morning show to the Westplex, I put a thing on my Facebook page about how I thought this was good. Remember this, John? I posted their sales page.
I do know that, Brad. Yeah, go ahead.
Because, John, and I'm not going to beat my chest, but why do I do these things, John? Answer the question.
Because, as you say, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes, and what's happened to our industry is the big boys have bought up all the radio stations. There's right now almost all the big stations in St. Louis are owned by 3 companies. Used to be 6, then it was 5, and it was 4, and now it's 3. And most of the programming is not even done in the market anymore. It's done outside of the market. And they're not employing that many people anymore. But yet there are stations like these stations, my stations, which is crap, KSOQ, the station we're on right now, Westplex Talk, Westplex 107.1, the Casper operation, the Tracy station, the Refugees and running, 101.9 and 94.1.
Yeah, Brian Richardson's outfit, right?
He's the KFAV guy, okay?
Okay.
And my position is if we are going to grow and prosper, we need to work together rather than fight against each other. Well, obviously, Kevin Russell sent me a nasty text criticizing me because how dare I put his sales page on my Facebook page and how dare I say nice things about him, which I still don't understand. And it turned into sort of a little fight between him and me. And what was interesting was a guy by the name of Paul Brown became the moderator because Paul Brown was doing sports, and I'm still promoting. And I even volunteered to promote the 101.7. They're doing a great job. This is Paul Brown's doing the Orchard Farms High School games. They'll do another one tonight. You can listen to the play-by-play. Paul does an excellent job on it. Goes out during the week, watches the practices, does videos of the players, videos of the coaches. It's like... And if you lived in Texas, John, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
It would be like high school football. It'd be like Friday nights. And we'd be remiss if we didn't point out, let me cut that short, Brad. We'd be remiss if we didn't point out that more importantly, Paul Brown is just a good guy.
Yes, a great guy. Well, Paul and I have been in contact, and he told me that Kevin was not doing well. And I said, can I talk about this? And he essentially, him and I texting back and forth. We had a couple phone conversations as well, too. And he says, you know what? I'd appreciate it if you didn't, which I didn't. So yesterday he contacted me and said that Kevin died yesterday morning, and they think, this is bizarre, West Nile disease. They think he may have been stung by a mosquito, and this caused an infection which got really bad and ultimately essentially caused his death, which, once again, you don't hear too much about West Nile disease. Right.
And folks can go to johncombest.com today and see 2 headlines about West Nile on my website.
Well, but it's one of those things that when you hear this, you go like, what? West Nile disease? I
know. And let's get back to your original point, Brad, which is...
It's sad. It's sad he's passed away. Yesterday they were playing I don't know if they're still doing it today. They're playing like Stairway to Heaven and all sorts of heaven songs. But here's my big point. My big point is I hate to see another guy who was a radio dude, a dyed-in-the-wool radio dude, kick the bucket, because there's a generation of us still around who are sort of the old school kind of guys who believe that local radio is still important and people do listen, which they do, and there should be more localization and less corporate ownership and stuff like that. It's sad when another one of the local proponents of radio is MIA. So that's my thing.
Will you still continue to play KBDZ as in the Westplex? Can I still hear that in rotation?
Because once again, that's another thing. I put together a song which I still play on this radio station. It's funny. It's funny you should mention that. Just Tuesday, out of the clear blue, a listener texted me and says, "I listened to your 104.5. Why are you promoting another radio station? I know you don't own that station." And I essentially responded, "Hey, look, trying to help him out." And I said, once again, I know he's getting tired of hearing this, as the tide rises, so do all boats. That's number one. Rest in peace, Kevin Russell. Okay, number 2.
And before we get into the top 3, I will repeat, I'll do a dead horse here, Brad, and say that the takeaway for folks who listen to this who are political operators is, the takeaway is sometimes when you're genuine and you're honest and you're straightforward and you're not trying to be duplicitous, people who might be used to duplicitous people or duplicitous themselves will look at you and say, this guy has to have some kind of an angle. This guy's trying to trick me. Well, and you won't say it about the recently departed, so I'll say it. There's a chance that Kevin looked at you, having dealt with a lot of shady radio people before, and said, clearly this Brad guy is trying to put one over on me. Is he trying to scam advertisers by masquerading as my station? What's going on? When in truth, you're just an honest operator, and people who might be less than scrupulous will look at you skeptically.
John, I know you don't like when I do this, but it's funny you bring that up. About a week and a half ago, when I was going back and forth with Paul Brown on a text, I said something to Paul. I go, "Paul, why is Kevin thinking like I'm the devil?" And his response was, he doesn't trust your motives. So what you just said.
There you go, Brad.
What you just said is exactly right.
Yeah, I think people in politics and government and public service deal with that all the time.
And you and I talk about this all the time. We promote Tracy's station. All the others won't go into them. Okay, number 2, and this involves you, John. This is actually sort of funny. Broadcasters have to file into what's called the FCC public information file, what we did, various aspects of our programming. We had to do that on a quarterly basis. The quarter ended third quarter ended September 30th. We had a new quarter in right now, fourth quarter. We have 10 days to put these files into our FCC file, which is on the internet. Anybody can go check it. And John, I asked you, and you did it for me. I appreciate it. John gave me a list of all the farm show, which we're claiming in our public file, which is public affairs programming. And I've got my list, and I was going to put it on this morning. And guess what, John?
The website's down. Yes. I went to look for a template or guidance from the FCC, right. And they're like, come back some other time.
Right. The website's down. Well, the website's there, but you just can't upload anything. There's a story on there. Somebody says, if they're in a case there's a shutdown with the government, this site will. So in other words, as of September 30th, they shut the website down. I mean, it's still there, but us as broadcasters, we can't do any filings. And remember, I think I even told you, I said that the approval for KDHX, the transfer of the sale from KDHX to the Joy 99 people, the approval went through on September 30th. And I said, that's probably going to be, remember when I told you, I said, that's going to be probably.
Yeah, you did, Brad. That's a great point.
One of the last filings it's going to clear before the government shuts down. And sure enough, it was, because all the filings that we do. You can't file right now if you would try.
I know. You know what's still going on, though? Missouri political news, Brad. We got 3 great stories this morning.
And what do we start off with?
Was that Casey Kasem, Brad?
No, that's
Combest Top 3.
John. I'm saving your ears every single day. John Combest puts together this incredible list of all the important stuff you need to do. On Fridays, especially, we bring in the Polka Boys because what happens? We bring in this gentleman right here. Your name, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And John calms him down. We start off with
In third place,
A name we'll mention this morning that I don't think we'll have to mention for a while. So let's take our medicine today on 10/10/25, and we probably won't have to pretend like it's important until after the August primary next year. Headline from Kurt Erickson from the Post-Dispatch. Kirkwood Democrat prepping run for Missouri auditor. Now, I didn't bother looking up this morning the Ballotpedia results of the margin by which state auditor Scott Fitzpatrick won his last election, because it doesn't really matter. I don't know exactly what that number is. But this gentleman is named Quentin Wilson. He's a Democrat in Kirkwood. He's 70 years old, Brad. You know any 70-year-old men with fancy dreams in your life?
Man, I do. I know quite a few of them. And you know what?
That you do.
They're
so
all
this
going for the
gentleman
Olympics.
is a kind old fella who worked, I guess he had some cabinet level positions in the 1990s, the Missouri Department of Revenue under Governor Mel Carnahan, good old taxman Carnahan. And Mr. Wilson also served as a deputy director at the Missouri Department of Economic Development. So it appears, according to this Kurt Erickson piece, that this gentleman is volunteering to put his name as a Democrat on the ballot to take the loss against Scott Fitzpatrick. And there's also another gentleman named Gregory Upchurch who lives in St. Charles, who appears to be a perennial candidate, maybe a la your friend Albert Dinoff. What's his name, Brad?
Arnie Dinoff.
Arnie Dinoff, yeah.
Dienhoff or something like
so
that.
this guy, Greg Upchurch, is a St. Charles resident who has made 3 previous unsuccessful runs for office, including 2 for state legislature and a 2020 bid for lieutenant governor. Upchurch formed a campaign committee for state auditor in September, but has not filed any campaign finance reports, which suggests that he hasn't raised any money. So we'll have, as of now, we'll have a Democratic primary for auditor. We have 2 white guys in the race on the Democratic ballot, and surely that won't stand. Surely some minority will file or something, some other also in. But it reminds us of something I brought up yesterday when we discussed Catherine Hanaway's career, and I discussed a state treasurer candidate that I worked for in 96. There are always candidates on the ballot that have no chance of winning. And we can smile and nod. And if we want to be honest with them, we tell them they have no chance of winning. But for the most part, you smile and nod, and you recognize that people will make money off this campaign. Somebody will put together email fundraising blasts and relieve patsies and simps of their cash and then take a little bit of the profit. But whoever this guy is, Brad, he seems like a really fine gentleman whose time for public service was the 1990s. And now he's doing another service to Democrats by maybe taking their loss in 2026. And, good for him, I guess.
Well, maybe he's not getting enough of his Medicare money, and he's going to, or Social Security, he's just going to get a paycheck like Ray Hartman, right?
That could be it. Yeah, he could do the Ray Hartman deal and pay himself to run for office.
Crazy stuff, John. You say people that run for office that don't have a chance, and they're simps. What's the other call them? Simp? What was the other word you used?
Yeah, and none of them descended down an escalator in 2015.
How did you know?
And were the subject of a constant Brad Hildebrand anecdote.
How did you know I was going there?
Yeah, boy, you're not predictable at all. You know what is predictable? Story number 2, Brad.
I can't believe you knew I was going there.
up a notch to number 2.
A headline via Jack Suntrup in the Post-Dispatch and other outlets that you'll find on johncombest.com today. A headline, Bayer considers an end to Roundup after Missouri High Court affirms $600 million verdict. The Missouri Supreme Court says, no, we're not going to reconsider a $600 million verdict against the company. Now, I'm struck by the first part of this. Bayer considers an end to Roundup. Have you heard anyone mention that before, Brad?
John, you and I have talked about this, and the thing that I always bring up, I don't understand how these suits are ongoing, but yet I can get off the air here at 8 o'clock and go to a Home Depot or a Walmart or a Lowe's and buy Roundup and fill my truck with it if I want. You know what I'm saying?
You can still buy glyphosate over the counter. You're exactly right, Brad. And there are just so many cases. I don't know how anyone keeps track. I'll read a quote, point of personal privilege here. Its options could include stopping production of glyphosate, the active ingredient found in the Roundup weed killer. Brian Leake, spokesperson for Bayer, said in a statement Thursday that the current situation was untenable. And here's the quote from Mr. Leake. There is a limit to what we can do, which is why we support legislation at both a federal and state level. And I said point of personal privilege because in the interest of conflict of interest, I love Brian Leake. I used to work with Brian Leake. Brad, I made fun of you yesterday in C Block. We had a good laugh at your expense for knowing show tunes, which I think clinically is known somewhere between gay and super gay. So let me make up for it by pointing out that I love Brian Leake. Anyway, Brian acknowledges reality here, which is that, man, this current trend is simply unsustainable. And when I brought up the See, I Told You So, you and I, in May of 2024, discussed Roundup, and I said, don't be surprised to open up a proverbial newspaper or a website in 2025 or 2026 and see that Bayer has sold off its flagship herbicide assets. Brad, it seems like we're inching closer. And if you're involved in the Missouri political world, you say, John, it's some farming stuff. Who cares? You'll recall a whole lot of controversy the last two legislative sessions about glyphosate legislation. Maybe there's no need for glyphosate legislation now that Bayer's going to wave the white flag.
Well, John, who would buy it if they spun it off? Who would touch that?
I maintain that there's a company called Syngenta that's owned by the Chinese. Brad, I don't think if you're a farmer who has a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and you decide you want to blame it on Monsanto and you take that case to the court of China, I don't think you're going to get a really fair case over in China. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess. So in other words, you're saying that they could do it because they just said, hey, come and sue it in our courts. and
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you with laughter, but good luck if you're a trial attorney
right,
and you say somebody has some disease because they walked past a playground where Roundup was sprayed in 2004. I don't think a Chinese court is going to be really sympathetic to that argument.
Well, you know, you and I have talked about this before as well, too. That's why all these people who make products in the United States complain about the fact that, you know, they got patents and things like that. They get knocked off by the Chinese. And essentially, what do? You can't sue them. You know what I mean?
You can't sue them, Brad.
Yeah. Okay, we're ready for number one?
Yeah, let's do it.
The number one.
A unique story that brings together St. Louis, conspiracy theories, and a man with whom Brad posed at a Salvation Army outlet store. That's right, a headline from NPR. I'm going to read to you an NPR headline because it's the most unbiased one there could be. Dominion, stifle that laughter, Brad. Dominion, the voting tech company at the center of false 2020 claims, is sold. I'll cut to the heart of the matter. A St. Louisan named Scott Leiendecker. He created a really popular and successful company called NoInk. They do a lot of the, when you sign in at a tablet, that company does a lot of the sign-in technology. Revolutionary. Scott started this, I think, like probably close to 20 years ago, maybe less than that. The point is, Scott's been involved in election technology for a long time, and he has a newly formed company called Liberty Vote. So follow me here, Brad. This new company, and Scott made a lot of money with founding this election security company. So he took some of that money, I presume, created this new company called Liberty Vote, probably with a little bit of help with that, I'm guessing, and purchased Dominion Voting Systems, which was at the center of all those conspiracy theories. Or, if you want to take the other angle, Dominion was a terrible company that was, throwing elections in favor of Democrats. And the bottom line is Scott is purchasing this company and says, you know what? We're going to drop claims against Mike Lindell. We're going to drop claims against Rudy Giuliani as part of the deal. So, Brad, you once went to a Salvation Army and had your picture taken with the pillow guy right there off of Old Harvester Road or 364 right there. And people gave you a hard time just because you posed for a picture with Mike Lindell. I love this story, first of all, because it's a St. Louis guy who, if you were involved in politics, I know that this limits the segment here, but if you were involved in politics a quarter century ago, gosh, I feel so old. You know Scott because you worked with him in St. Louis city politics. Matt Blunt appointed him to investigate a bunch of nonsense that happened in the 2000 election. Anyway, it's a local boy done good. And as part of this acquisition, he's saying, look, hey, Rudy, hey, Mike Lindell, no blood, no foul. Let's just call it even.
Okay, John, first off, you destroyed my top three because you took two of my top three. But
thank you, Brad. You're welcome.
I find this story absolutely positively fascinating because of the fact that, just like for the point you brought out, it's got a local aspect to it. But here's my deal that I don't quite understand. Okay, Dominion got this huge settlement. It was, I think, $750 million, like $750 million.
A ton of money, yeah.
$750 million from Fox. They got a settlement from, I think, News Nation. I don't remember all the ones. But, okay, so in other words, if you're Dominion Voting Systems and you got these settlements and you have this money sitting in your bank account, how in the hell did Scott come up with enough money? Because wouldn't that make the company worth like a tremendous amount of money because they've got these windfalls of cash from these lawsuits?
But hold on, Brad. Did Dominion actually cash a check?
Well, I don't know. Did they yet?
So, I mean, you think Rudy Giuliani has $200 million laying around or whatever figure it was?
Well, but supposedly the check already cashed for Fox. They settled that case.
Okay. Well, but that also assumes that Dominion didn't have any debt.
I say, Scott, I don't know the guy you do. I say he's a Missouri guy. I'm all for this. I'm a little bit upset that he didn't call it, what's the new company, Free, or what's he called, Liberty?
Liberty Vote. Yeah, what should he have called it?
Freedom Caucus Voting Systems. And that way, Bill Eigel could say, hey, see, we got our own voting system now. It's called the Freedom Caucus Voting System.
You can also do an online quiz, and you can say, are you qualified to be in the Super Liberty Vote? You know?
Well, no, the Super Freedom
Caucus. Yeah, I know, but you can adapt that quiz to anything.
So he's essentially ending by buying this. He's essentially ending the case against Lindell and Giuliani and all these other people?
Yeah, that's the way I read this story. And I got to be honest, I saw the headlines yesterday, and I was like, oh, cool, that's Scott's company. I saw people tweeting about No Ink, and I was like, oh, cool, that's Scott's company. I didn't think much about it. And then I saw the headlines this morning, and I haven't dived deep into it other than explaining what I just read there. But, Scott is, I know we're over time here, but Scott is really close to Ed Martin. So Scott and Ed Martin worked together for years in St. Louis City because Ed was the head of the St. Louis City elections department, and Scott was his right-hand guy for years. And they also worked together in a campaign you might remember called SaveAB.com. Do you remember that, Brad?
I do. And by the way, I just texted you. The reason I found out about this, not on NPR, and I just sent you the CNN article, which is pretty lengthy.
I saw that this morning too.
Okay, you saw that one already. Okay. I just think it's sort of interesting. I mean, and now there's going to be all sorts of people saying, okay, the Republicans are behind this. Scott got money from a bunch of Republican super donors to buy Dominion, but I read the story and I think there's something interesting about it is I didn't realize this Dominion started as a Canadian company, and Scott said that he's going to have everything done in the United States. And one of the interesting aspects of it is he's trying to take the voting system totally back to the paper ballot. That's right.
Yes. That's right. Do you want to continue this in B Block if it was one of your top three?
Yes.
I'd love to keep talking about it.
I tell you what, I'll do it as my number three, and that way we can talk, because I find this absolutely fascinating. And like I said, because of the local angle, because here's a local guy that you even know, right?
Yeah, I know Scott. Yeah, I go way back with Scott.
Okay, so let's take a break. We'll come back. That'll be my number three, and then we'll go from there. So you destroyed one of mine, but you didn't.
You're welcome.
No problem.